You don't need to buy a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon to get out and have some amazing off-road adventures, and you don't need it as a foundation to go hit some really challenging trails. You can get something like a Willys. Now, I know that's going to stir up a little bit of debate, and I get it because almost all of my Jeeps over the years have been Rubicons, but I just picked up this Willys, and today what I want to do is give you a tour of it, show you all the features, which aren't a lot, compare and contrast it with the Rubicon, and then explain to you what I'm doing with this Jeep. It's pretty exciting, guys. Let's get started. So this is a 2021 Jeep Wrangler Willys. It's used, it's got 32,000 miles on it, and I paid just over $30,000 for it. Now, before we dive into some of the very specifics on here, I want to talk about the first thing that I've already added to this Jeep, and that is the TrailRecon Vehicle First Aid Kit. It's one of the most important things you guys can carry with you as a first aid kit. Knowing what is in here, taking some basic first aid classes could be invaluable. You could save somebody's life or even your own. So please check us out over at TrailRecon.com. Pick yourself up a first aid kit. And I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is onX Off-Road. onX Off-Road is an extensive navigation app that we will be using quite a bit when we're taking this thing out on the trail. We're going to get out and get after it in stock form. So onX has curated trails out there that let us know if they're easy, moderate, difficult, or extreme. And well, hopefully that will keep us out of a little bit of trouble. But we're going to see what this Jeep can do out there, and we're going to be using onX along the way. So I will leave a link down below where you can get 20% off on onX Off-Road. All right, let's talk about this Jeep. So what in the world am I doing with this used Jeep? Well, it's been something I've been thinking about for a long time. I've wanted to do this video series where we do some real good basic educational stuff, where we teach folks how to get out and off-road properly, and doing it in a bone stock Jeep I think is really important because we can show capabilities and limitations. And then along the way, we're going to upgrade this. We'll do it in stages. You know, we'll go from 33 to 35 to 37 to 40-inch tires over the next couple years. And we'll show how some of those things can be advantages, and they also can have a negative effect on your vehicle. Folks that want to keep it daily driver friendly, well, they may not want to go all the way to the other side. Some people that want to go all the way to the other side maybe need to understand what that means and how much it's going to cost. And so we're going to show every dollar that we spend on this Jeep along the way. And I think that's going to be very important. And I love that this is Stingray. We're calling this Jeep Recon One. And this whole video series is Operation Recon One. Now, why didn't I just go get a brand new Willys? It's got a rear locker, it's got taller fenders, it's got some other features. Well, it's $13,000 more than this, and I can do a whole lot with $13,000. I could have bought a used Rubicon and started out with a better foundation, but again, those things with the same amount of miles, with the same options as this has, which is not a whole lot, is still more than this one. So this is a great starting point, and I think this is pretty practical for a lot of people. And they can decide along the way what upgrades they want to do and upgrades they don't want to do. Operation Recon One. Let's get started. Let's talk about the differences between this and a Rubicon and show you all the features on this guy. So I was getting ready to pop the hood, and I just realized there's something very glowing right in front of me that's an obvious difference between the Rubicon and this, and that's that you don't have those plastic louvers that the Rubicon has. And I actually like this better. And if you look at the cowl up here, it's that black plastic. It's got a lot of fade to it, and that means these would probably be faded. Now, we're going to find a way to clean that up, but honestly, I like this look much better. Now, the engine in here is our standard 3.6 liter Pentastar, and one of the big reasons for getting the JL model and not a JK model is because we get that 8-speed transmission that's back there. Plus, I just like the looks of the JL, and the interior features are really nice. Now, with the Willys, we get the 2.7-to-1 transfer case. We don't get the 4-to-1 transfer case that we get on the Rubicon. So it's going to be fine initially, but as we start getting bigger tires and we get on harder trails, we're going to want a better gearing ratio with that transfer case. So do we swap in a Rubicon transfer case, or we get an Atlas? Well, we'll figure that out when the time comes. And one thing I'm noticing here is the dealership was nice enough to detail the engine bay, and it looks great, but it's covered in like Armor All, which means the very first time that I go hit the trail, it's just going to stick all the dust right to there, and it's going to look filthy. But 32,000 miles, I think we're gonna have a lot of miles with this thing. It's gonna be great. Now, the Willys has a blacked out gloss grille, which, you know, I think it's one of those things that just kind of grows on you. I prefer a painted grille, but it does look good with this stingray color. The front bumper here is plastic, and that will be one of the first things to go because we need to get a winch on here so we can have some recovery, because as we're keeping this stock, we might find ourselves in a little bit of a sticky situation. Now, the fenders here, one of the blemishes on this Jeep is right here on the fender. You can see that it's taken a pretty good scrape or hit or against something. The fender on the Willys is not a tall fender like the Rubicon. And also I went out and measured it because I was like, oh, that really looks narrower. It actually is a 1/2 inch narrower than a Rubicon fender, also on the rear. So they don't stick out quite as far. You don't get as much coverage. And I think that's because the Rubicon axles are a little wider, which makes sense. So these are a little bit narrower and they sit a little bit lower. Now, I mentioned there's a little blemish here. The rest of the Jeep is really, really in good condition. And I looked underneath extensively, and I don't think this thing has ever been on the rocks. It doesn't look like there's any scratches at all underneath, which is good news. Now, there was plenty of dust here, so I'm sure it's seen some dirt roads and some good trails, but it hasn't been used and abused. Not like we're getting ready to do. All right, let's talk about the Willys tires and suspension and the axles specifically. So, right here, we've got some 255 70R17 tires, and these are Avanta ATs, I think they are. And these are brand new from the dealership, but these are not gonna stick around. But we're gonna use these for a little while as we're wheeling it stock, but a 32 is just not gonna get the job done. But I will mention that driving this Jeep, it's really nice how a stock Jeep accelerates and brakes and how quiet it is. We're gonna mess that up by throwing bigger tires on along the way. Now, I love the black wheels that the Willys comes with. In fact, you got a lot of black badges and that just looks good. I love it. I think especially for Recon One, it's just a good fit. Now, one of our biggest challenges is the axle behind these front tires is a Dana 30. Technically, it's an M186. But it's not a really robust axle. It's gonna be fine for this size tire to 33s to 35s. But when we start going with bigger tires and we start getting after it a little bit more, we're gonna need, you're being a turkey. Yeah, you are. We're gonna need definitely a 44 or even a bigger axle up there. And so the plan is to upgrade that. And we may just get something used for a while. What are you doing? I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to these guys. Yeah, so we need to get something stronger in there because if we don't, we're gonna be in trouble. Now, in the Rubicon, you have a little button that allows you to disconnect the sway bar. We don't have that on here. Now we can do some manual disconnect and that's what we'll do in the beginning, but later on, we'll come up with a solution that'll make it pretty easy to disconnect our sway bar. So when we get out on some really hard trails, we can get that little bit of extra flex. Yeah, we're starting pretty foundational here. This is gonna be good for a while, but we're gonna need to upgrade some of this stuff. I mentioned underneath, it looks pretty clean, but we are gonna be adding some good armor underneath. We'll do some diff covers, but what's great about the Willys edition is it comes with the same rock slider that's on the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. And I can attest, I have used and abused these rock sliders and they'll hold up very well. For what we're gonna do in the first, several iterations of this, those will be staying for a while. Now, it's got a soft top, guys. This is really nice, especially here in Southern California. I've already been driving around with the top off and it's been great. Now, this is not gonna be turned into an overland style vehicle. We're not gonna put a roof rack up there and all the things that we would normally do on our builds. This is gonna help save us weight and it's gonna make it really nice when we're off on the trail. We can take the doors off, we can take the top off, and we can just go have fun jeeping and off-roading. Now, I'll throw my camping gear in here from time to time and we'll go hit some trails and we'll stay the night out there, but we're gonna keep it a little bit more simple when we take Recon One out. I'm excited to have the soft top. Now, this is not the original. This is a best top soft top, and I've already been doing out on the freeway in the fast lane, and it's actually surprisingly quiet. And I love how easy it is to take on and off and drop the top and just go cruise around. Yeah, I like it. Now, a couple things worth mentioning in the rear. We do have a Dana 44 in the rear, but there's no locker, and that will be one of the first upgrades that we do to this. Having a rear locker is going to help us tremendously when we're out on the trail. The other thing is, I mentioned a little bit about the fenders earlier. I do think we're going to upgrade the fenders. We'll probably go with a higher line fender or a flat fender, probably more when we get to the 37-inch tires, but those fenders are not going to stay. Now, the rear bumper is plastic, and there's no backup sensors, and that's something that I really like about this Jeep. There's no backup sensors, there's no perimeter sensors, there's no adaptive cruise control. This thing has just the basics, and I'll show you when we get inside. Now, one thing to note is here back here is this is the original spare tire, although it's used, but it's got a tire plug in here, which means the owner carried a tire patch kit. So this was probably off-roaded by somebody that knew what they were doing, so that's kind of good to know. But they didn't abuse it, which I like. All right, let's hop inside and let me show you what's not in there. Now, I'm pretty confident that the only options on this Jeep specifically are that it has power windows, and we have the Mopar auxiliary switch buttons down here, which we will put to good use. But otherwise, I don't think it's got anything else. We have a very small screen with the basic stereo. You don't have any of the lockers, the sway bar disconnect. You don't have the off-road plus mode. We don't have any of that stuff. I don't even have like the little home thing up here to open my garage door, or the thing that reduces your glare if somebody's using their brights in your mirror. I mean, it's just basic, and I love that about this Jeep. Now, you don't have any of the red stitching that you would have on the Rubicon, and I actually appreciate that, because if we decide to do an accent color, or we just keep it with the slate gray and black, it just looks really good. Now, this smaller head unit is a little hard to get used to. I will maybe upgrade the stereo over time. We'll see. Even Apple CarPlay is a little small on there. We got cloth seats, and they could use a good little refresh. The back seats, this Jeep, we're keeping the back seats in. We're not taking the back seats out. Again, we're not doing an overland build here. This is going to be, in the beginning, a good daily driver, weekend warrior. Then it's going to be a good trail rig, and then we're going to just keep taking it up a notch each phase along the way. I want to keep the back seats in there, and that way if my sons want to come with me, or Regina and Luna want to come, we can go have a good time. We got plenty of space. So yeah, I've already been driving this ring around, guys. It's really growing on me. I like it. I like the simplicity of it. Now, I don't want to mislead anybody. The Jeep Rubicon is an extremely capable vehicle right out of the gate. It's got everything you need to go get after it and have a great time. But that's not in everybody's budget. And what you can do is you can buy a Jeep that's maybe a model like this, and slowly, as your budget allows, do upgrades along the way. And that's what we're going to do with this. We're going to take it from zero to hero. That's kind of the plan. And I want to do upgrades that make sense, that they're practical and they're useful, and just do it smart. You know, a lot of people, their Jeep is their daily driver, and so we're going to keep it in a situation where we can go have a good time on the weekends on the trail, but it's still practical to drive around to and from work and going in and get groceries. By the time we get to 37s and 40s, we're going to lose some of that drivability, but not a lot. It's still going to be extremely capable and drivable, and that's kind of the plan. I'm excited about this, guys, and I would love to know your thoughts. Now, the next couple of videos that we're going to do on this, we're going to take it out on the trail stock. We're going to talk about some of the ways that I'm going to personalize this a little bit, some of the first little tiny upgrades that we're going to do, some of the things that we're going to fix, and then we'll get into a little bit more advanced stuff as we go. But right now, let's go get this thing dirty next. What do you say? I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you're as excited as I am about Operation Recon One. Until next time, safe travels.